Surprising facts about the ancient Greeks. Hey everyone, it's Alexa again. Welcome back to another video. The time period of ancient Greeks was from about 800 BC to roughly 146 when it fell to the Romans. Classical Greek culture heavily influenced the Roman Empire and spread to parts of the Mediterranean Basin and Europe. Classical Greece is believed to have been the foundation of modern Western culture and the cradle of Western civilization. When you hear some of these surprising facts, you might find yourself wondering how this is even possible. Before we get into today's video, make sure that you're subscribed and ring the bell so that you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Welcome to Sparta. At the age of 7, ancient Athenian boys went to school. Soldiers would take Spartan boys from their moms and house them in dormitories with other boys while they were being trained as soldiers. Spartan men were only allowed to live with their families from the age of 30 when they were done with military service. I love you. Here, let me throw an apple at you. Perhaps the ancient Greeks were hoping to knock the senses out of the one they loved so they could love them back regardless, but throwing an apple at someone was a declaration of love in ancient Greece. Year on year. The world's first democracy was seen in ancient Greece, and it lasted for 185 years. Greek diagnostics. Thank goodness this is no longer the case, as we'd probably not have many doctors around if it was. In ancient Greece, doctors would diagnose you by tasting your bodily fluids. Anything from earwax to sweat, urine, or phlegm would be licked and then a diagnosis given. This stemmed from Hippocrates believing that the body was made up of a collection of fluids, and each one had its own specific taste. Doctors were taught what those should taste like and how to taste if anything was amiss. Needless to say, not many ailments were treated correctly with this method. Pass the salt. Ever heard the saying, worth your salt? This comes from ancient Greece and Rome, where slaves were purchased with salt. More than that, salt was not merely used to flavor food, but preserve it too. It was used as an antiseptic, and soldiers even earned salt as part of their salary. If they weren't performing up to scratch, their salt would be halved. The salary earned the name Salarium Argentum, which is where our word salary stems from. Extra protection. Spiked dog collars come from ancient Greece and were made to protect the dog's throat from potential wolf attacks. High rollers. During the 5th and 4th centuries BC, ancient Greece was probably the most advanced economy in the world. Wipe it down. It wasn't until the 16th century that Europe saw toilet paper for the first time, and people made use of many different methods to clean themselves. Greeks and Romans were known to attach sponge to sticks, but not all Greeks had access to this luxury, so they would use stones. At the lavatories, you'd find a pile of pebbles, which is what was used to clean yourself up. If there were no pebbles available, broken bits of pottery would also suffice. In acts of defiance, Greeks would etch their enemy's name into the pottery before use. Zombie attack. Zombies are not just a pop culture trend, but have been around and feared for centuries. The ancient Greeks believed they were real and used to take heavy precautions when burying their dead, ensuring there was no way they could rise from their graves. The people that were believed to rise from the dead included murder victims and those who had genetic deformities. They were called revenants, and they were buried with heavy stones on top of them. There was no way the dead could become zombies, and any chance of an apocalypse would be averted. Set a good example. If you were a wealthy teenager in ancient Greece, chances are you'd have an elderly person as a mentor. Your mentor would often be chosen by your father. Revival of the old. It's a shame we don't have this in place today, as it could mean that politicians and those in power would be there for the right reasons and not for the money, fame, or glory. Citizens were able to exile a politician for up to 10 years, and this would be done with people they believed would threaten their democracy or state. It was called ostrakismos, like in today's word, ostracized. Hear my roar. We can thank the ancient Greeks for the word dinosaur, which translated means terrible lizard. Let the games begin. The Greeks are well known for their Olympic Games, and the athletes that took part in the games used to do it completely in the nude and covered in oil. When they were finished with this sport, they would be filthy, sweaty, stinky, and of course, still oily. It was then someone's job to remove this sweat from the athletes, which was then bottled and sold as a cure-all. No fighting allowed. The games were very important to the ancient Greeks, and wars were not permitted for a minimum of a month before the games. This was to ensure that spectators could travel safely to the games. Legal disputes and death penalties were all put on hold while the games were underway. What's in a name? Being called an idiot today is not that great. It's a jab at someone referring to their supposed inferior intelligence. The word is from ancient Greek and referred to a private citizen or anyone who wasn't a politician. come as one. In ancient Greece, the unibrow was a sign of intelligence and great beauty in women. Women who were not well endowed in the eyebrow department would often use makeup to recreate the look. Ray of sun. It was the ancient Greek Aristarchus of Samos that first came up with the theory that the sun was the center of the universe and that planets orbit around the sun. This was around the 3rd century BC. Cheers. Yes, the ancient Greeks enjoyed their wine, but they didn't drink it neat like we do. Most of the time, they mixed 1 part wine to 3 parts water. Neat wine was consumed on the odd occasion, like symposiums. It was served in a crater, like a punch bowl, and guests could help themselves. Eubolus, a Greek poet from the 4th century, wrote the following: "After 3 craters, the wise guests go home. The 5th crater led to yelling, and the 6th to prancing around, and the 7th black eyes. The 8th expect the police, the 9th chugging, and the 10th insanity and throwing furniture." The red carpet. Red carpets are not just a relatively new idea where you'll spot famous actors and actresses, but they were around in ancient Greek times. The first time it was mentioned was in a play called Agamemnon, where they referred to a crimson path where those who held stature would walk down. This luxury was fit for the gods. Play ball. Soccer was a big sport for the ancient Greeks, except it wasn't called soccer and it wasn't played with a ball like you'd expect. The game was called episkiros, and the ball was an inflated pig's bladder. Women were also allowed to take part in the game. Which of these facts surprised you the most? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. 1. Wine o'clock. These days, we have many alcoholic beverages on tap, including the obvious like beer and a good gin. But back in ancient Greek times, it was said that the city of Sybaris had wine on tap. They had pipes flowing directly from the vineyards into their homes. We can learn a thing or two from the ancient Greeks.